The Great Depression was a period of economic turmoil that began in the United States in 1929 and quickly spread to other parts of the world. It was triggered by a stock market crash on October 24, 1929, known as Black Thursday, when investors lost billions of dollars in a single day. In this video, we will explore the causes, effects, and legacy of the Great Depression. The crash of stock market and what led to it. The stock market crash of October 1929, also known as Black Thursday, was a major turning point in the history of the Great Depression. It was triggered by a combination of factors, including overconfidence in the stock market, excessive speculation, and a decline in consumer spending. In the years leading up to the crash, many people had invested heavily in the stock market, believing that the market would continue to rise indefinitely. As a result, stock prices became inflated beyond their actual value, creating a bubble that was bound to burst. On October 24, 1929, panic set in and investors began selling their stocks in large numbers, causing the market to crash. Billions of dollars were lost in a matter of hours, and many investors were left bankrupt. This sudden loss of wealth caused a widespread loss of confidence in the economy, leading to a sharp reduction in consumer spending. As a result, businesses began to suffer and many were forced to close their doors. Banks, too, were affected, as they had invested heavily in the stock market and had also made risky loans to speculators. As the economy spiraled downward, banks began to fail, triggering a wave of panic and bank runs. The high levels of unemployment caused by the economic downturn led to a massive reduction in consumer spending, which in turn further worsened the economic crisis. People had no money to spend, and businesses had no customers to sell to. This downward spiral continued for years, with the worst of the economic hardship lasting from 1929 to 1933. It was a period of great suffering and poverty for millions of people around the world, and it left a lasting impact on the global economy and society. The reaction of governments. The Great Depression was a severe economic crisis that affected the entire world, and governments around the globe were forced to respond with a range of policies. One of the most common policy responses to the Depression was increased public spending. Governments invested in infrastructure projects, social welfare programs, and job creation initiatives in order to boost economic activity and create jobs. This policy approach was used with varying degrees of success in countries such as the United States, Australia, and Sweden. Another policy response was the use of protective tariffs, which were designed to protect domestic industries from foreign competition. However, this policy led to a rise in international trade barriers, with other countries responding in kind by imposing their own tariffs, leading to a cycle of retaliatory measures that contributed to the severity and length of the Depression. Currency devaluation was another policy response, with countries lowering the value of their currencies to make their exports more competitive on the global market. This policy was used by countries such as Britain, Japan, and France, but it also contributed to the cycle of retaliatory measures as other countries responded by devaluing their own currencies, leading to a race to the bottom that had a negative impact on global trade. Overall, the policy responses to the Great Depression were varied and had different impacts on different countries. Some policies were successful in mitigating the effects of the Depression, while others worsened the situation and contributed to global economic instability. It was a difficult and complex time, and the lessons learned from the policy responses to the Great Depression continue to shape economic policy today. Political and social consequences. The Great Depression also had a profound impact on society. During this period, people around the world experienced widespread poverty and suffering. As a result, many people lost faith in the ability of their governments and big businesses to solve the crisis, and this led to widespread discontent and unrest. In some countries, this discontent led to the rise of extremist political movements, such as fascism and communism. In Germany, for example, the economic crisis created fertile ground for the rise of the Nazi Party, which promised to restore German prosperity and pride. In the Soviet Union, the Depression reinforced the appeal of communism as people looked for an alternative to the capitalist system that had failed them. These extremist political movements were often characterized by authoritarianism, nationalism, and a rejection of liberal democracy. They promised simple solutions to complex problems, and they often scapegoated minority groups or political opponents as the source of societal ills. This led to a rise in political violence and repression, as these movements sought to consolidate their power and suppress opposition. Despite their differences, these extremist political movements were united in their rejection of the status quo and their desire for radical change. They represented a challenge to the established order, and they helped to shape the course of world history in the years leading up to World War II. Overcoming the crisis. Governments around the world struggled to find ways to combat the crisis, and many implemented policies aimed at stimulating the economy and increasing consumer spending. In the United States, President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal programs were a key part of the government's response to the Depression. The Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration were just two of the many programs implemented under the New Deal umbrella. These programs aimed to provide jobs and housing for unemployed young men, as well as employ millions of people to build roads, bridges, schools, and other infrastructure projects. The New Deal also introduced social welfare benefits, such as unemployment insurance and Social Security, to provide a safety net for those who had lost their jobs and livelihoods. These policies helped to ease the suffering of millions of Americans and prevent the worst effects of the Depression from spiraling out of control. Outside of the United States, other governments also implemented policies aimed at combating the Depression. In Germany, for example, the Nazi government implemented a range of public works projects and social welfare programs to address the economic crisis. Similarly, in Japan, the government implemented policies aimed at stimulating the economy and increasing consumer spending. However, it was not until the onset of World War II that the Depression finally came to an end. Increased government spending on infrastructure and military spending created jobs and stimulated economic growth, ultimately bringing the Depression to a close. Legacy and impact of the Great Depression in our days. The Great Depression had a profound impact on the world, and its legacy is still felt today. It fundamentally changed the way people thought about the economy and the role of government in society. In the aftermath of the Depression, governments around the world realized the importance of policies aimed at protecting citizens from economic instability, leading to the creation of social welfare programs, labor protections, and other safety nets. The Depression also led to a shift in popular culture. Many of the films, books, and songs produced during this time reflected the struggles and hardships of the era. They also captured the resilience and determination of people who persevered in the face of adversity. This legacy can still be seen in contemporary culture, with many works of art and media still grappling with themes of economic inequality and social justice. Moreover, the Depression played a significant role in shaping international relations. The economic turmoil of the era contributed to the rise of extremist political movements, such as fascism and communism, which ultimately led to World War II. The aftermath of the war also led to the creation of global institutions like the United Nations, aimed at promoting peace and international cooperation. In conclusion, the legacy of the Great Depression is multifaceted and far-reaching. It continues to shape our thinking about economics, politics, and society. While the Depression was a time of great hardship and suffering, it also served as a catalyst for important social and political changes that continue to benefit us today.